Members of the organized private sector in Nigeria comprise Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Nigeria Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, Nigeria Association of Small-Scale Industries, and of course, Nigeria Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. We're being joined by Adewale Oyerinde, the Director of Membership Services, Nigeria Employer Consultative Association. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Oyerinde.
Good morning. Our pleasure. Always to have you.
Well, this is this is not something that happens very often, where we have different, organized private sector, coming together, MAN, NECA, NASIMA, and all that. What informed this particular meeting?
Well, thank you very much once again, and thank you, viewers. The OPS, as we call it, has been in existence for many years. It's actually the combination of those 5 institutions. We call them, those 5 forms the organized private sector of Nigeria. While individually we have our raison d'etre, we have our main function, we have our members, but at the national level, we have that institution that is called the organized private sector. And the secretariat of the organized private sector rotates between the big 3, between NECA, it goes for NECA for 2 years, it moves to Manufacturers Association of Nigeria for 2 years, and also NASIMA for 2 years. While the 5 form the body. So for the next 2 years, is with NECA now, and probably we've not been in the press as often as we should, but this meeting informed, because of circumstances surrounding the environment, circumstances of the economy, the body came together and shared their perspectives and shared their views concerning the economy, and also make recommendations, as you mentioned earlier, on ways which we think government can further steer the direction of the economy, so that we all arrive at that El Dorado that we all are hoping for.
The El Dorado. Well, about 8 key areas were in focus. Let's start with the foreign exchange market. Your members are asking for more liquidity in the market here, and the consolidation of the unification of exchange rate. What is your recommendation to the central bank?
Now, we find ourselves in an unusual situation where the country is faced with multifaceted challenges. And for you to come out of those challenges, first you look at which of those problems can you face that will have a rippling positive effect on so many other challenges. And one of those issues is the issue of foreign exchange. Yes, there's positive of foreign exchange because, as you all know, oil is the major source of foreign exchange for the country. About 90% of our foreign exchange earnings come from oil, about 60% of government revenue from oil, while oil constitutes about just 9% of GDP. Now, for businesses to expand, they need foreign exchange to buy critical raw materials, to buy machineries, and those machineries, you can't find them in this environment, so they have to import. So if you want to address the critical issue of unemployment, which is also a major issue driving insecurity and banditry, then you need to focus, deliberately focus on those organizations, those areas of the sector where you can pump in foreign exchange even while it's scarce. Pump in foreign exchange, they bring in machineries, they produce, they expand. Then you are not only solving the issue of unemployment, you are also, on the other side, solving the issue of government revenue. Because as businesses expand, government will pay tax. And as people are getting employed, you are solving the issue of unemployment. And those staff
kind of
also.
A value chain.
Exactly. The impact of that one intervention will have a rippling effect on so many issues.
Right. Now, we know that, well, sometimes manufacturers have often complained about some of the policies that the central bank had put in place, particularly, checkmating what item can access the foreign exchange market.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some of them that are being banned from accessing the foreign exchange.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but what capacity do you think the manufacturers have to produce what should be actually locally produced in Nigeria?
I think the capacity is huge, and the potential is also very, very huge. Nigeria is one of the biggest countries in Africa, if not the biggest country in Africa, probably the biggest economy in Africa. And before now, the manufacturing capacity utilization is very, very high also. But those challenges that we have faced tends to reduce, even the capacity utilization of those manufacturing. And as we have also escalated the government, there is gradual deindustrialization of the whole country because of those issues that we face. So the manufacturing sector, like other sectors, are poised to contribute effectively to this growth that we're talking about. Now, let's look at the issue of how well poised or how ready are they to utilize those foreign exchange. You know, the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, will be coming into effect. It's already coming into effect, and implementation will start very soon. You know, even if those manufacturing sectors are not, they don't have the capacity, then it's enlightening self-interest for us to deliberately boost their capacity so that they can produce and produce maximally. If not, we are creating a big problem for ourselves, because the country might eventually become a dumping ground for products and goods that will come from other services. So it's a two-edged sword. Either we support them and support them effectively so that they can contribute to GDP. And if oil, petrol is only contributing 9% to GDP, then I think it's high time we focus on those other sectors that can drive growth, maximally, so that we all move out of the quagmire. The second part of it is, if we don't support them, then AFCFTA will come into effect. The problem of unemployment that we have will continue. And then our country, unfortunately, might just become a dumping ground for goods that will come from other countries, further compounding the challenges that we have. So it's in our own enlightened self-interest. When we talk about the issue of foreign exchange, it's not giving foreign exchange for somebody to put in his pocket. It's foreign exchange for productive activities that we have identified and also made recommendations to government.
So what are you recommending for, better, implementation of this AFCFTA?
And we said, one, we need to create awareness. Engagement is ongoing, and thank God government also have recognized and also accepted that, look, engagement needs to go on. Then there is need for proper engagement of the citizenry, proper engagement of MSMEs, proper engagement of critical stakeholders in all sectors of the economy, then deliberate support for those sectors, all the sectors, so that we can create an environment where they can be competitive. Because once the borders are open, even when there are rules and there are protocols guiding the AFCFTA, you still need to protect your own industries so that those coming from outside will not render your businesses uncompetitive. And as they render them uncompetitive, jobs are being shipped out to those countries and then leaving you as a dumping ground for so many goods that ordinarily you could have produced.
Right. Now, your group also noted high and rising unemployment as a ticking time bomb. I guess it has exploded with the insecurity situation that we're beginning to see in the country. But then, as an employer of labor, now you represent NECA, that's Employers Consultative Forum. From your perspective as an employer of labor, where is the problem?
Before COVID, there are issues. There are issues, and we must commend government for the deliberate effort that government has made, and the deliberate effort it made during COVID, and also the various interventions that are ongoing. But COVID came in. We were just coming out of a recession a few years ago, and then COVID came in. COVID-19 came in, and actually created another kind of panic, another kind of challenge, a novel challenge, we call it, that even government have not experienced before. So addressing those challenges, certain policies came up, certain policies were knee-jerk policies, and government was bold enough to actually reverse some of those policies and also akin to recommendations of the private sector in addressing those policies. Now, the main source of our foreign exchange, as I mentioned, is oil. The main source of government foreign revenue. And then there was a glut in oil price. That stopped the flow of government revenue. And that affects every form of business that government is doing. And those that are government vendors, those that are government contractors, they also suffer the backlash. Organized businesses also suffer the backlash because of the lockdown. And because of the global village. The world is a global village. Whatever happens in China, whatever happens in the US, whatever happens in Germany has an effect on the economy. So we came out of recession, ran into COVID-19 with its own complexities, compounding the issue of unemployment. Many businesses, as we mentioned here last year, we did a survey with the International Labour Organization, and it showed significant number of businesses actually closed down, compounding the issue of unemployment. Now, COVID is still with us, and most of those businesses are still struggling to come back. So those that have lost their job during those periods, they are still struggling to return back to job. Now, the rate of our population is very high. We are churning out graduates on a regular basis, and we are not creating jobs.
Graduates with a sound education?
Now, that will change the dynamics of the conversation. The employability of the graduates. That's a different conversation entirely. But the reality is that we have so many universities, close to 30, 40 universities, churning out graduates on a regular basis. And those graduates are coming out to the job market, to the labor market. Now we call it the favor market. They are all coming out to the labor market, and jobs are not being created at the same rate at which those graduates are coming up. So the natural consequences will be, if you are not creating jobs and graduates are coming up, you keep building a repertoire of unemployed graduates.
So how do we begin to address this situation? Because when you talk about insecurity, in the country, I mean, it boils down to high level of unemployment.
Yeah. Now, three ways to address these issues, and as my principals have said, they are not rocket science. There are two critical employers of labor, two platforms where that generates employment. First is government. Government is an employer. Then the private sector. Then you look at the MSMEs, the small and medium-scale businesses that own their own businesses, and call them, for the purpose of this conversation, let's call them entrepreneurs. Now, if government cannot sufficiently create jobs to meet the needs of the populace, then the second level of attention you should focus on is the private sector. And it has been said over and over that for every 10 jobs, the private sector creates 9. Now, the attention should be, let's focus on those that can help us to mitigate those challenges. And that's why the issue of the access to the intervention funds came up, access to foreign exchange came up. Let's deliberately support those sectors, the organized private sector, to help us to create jobs. The more we support them, the more they expand, the more they create jobs. As I mentioned earlier, the more they create jobs, the more they expand. Government is also getting tax from revenue from the businesses and also getting tax revenue from the employees. Then we also focus on the MSMEs. Let's create an environment where MSMEs can thrive. And the MSMEs are basically the drivers of development in most developed countries. So let's look at the organized private sector as one focal point, and let's look at the MSMEs as another focal point. Deliberate policies to support them will take us gradually, or we create a path for us out of this cobweb. And like a popular politician in time past said, you cannot shave my head behind me. So if you are coming up with policies for the private sector, it should be instructive that the private sector should be involved not only in the implementation of those policies, but also be involved while those policies are being crafted.
Okay. All right. Another key issue here is attracting foreign investment. What are the recommendations here?
Now, if I'm, let's create an hypothetical situation. If I'm an investor and the truth is we need private capital to support the investment plan of this country. Let's assume I'm a private investor. I reside in the US. I have billions of dollars to invest. I will look for an environment that is safe and where I can get returns. And in Nigeria, we have the population, we have the rich, we have the market. Then the second thing I will look for is probably call a colleague that is running the business in that environment.
And wonder how it's doing.
How is the environment? How is your business doing?
Yeah.
Beyond what the regulators will tell me is testimonial of how I'm running the business. We also influence whether I'll bring my capital to the country, to that country or not. So the recommendation for us and the recommendations that my principals have made is this. Let's create an environment that is favorable, that is enabling for businesses to thrive. The regulatory environment must be favorable. Regulators must enable businesses, and not be seen to be stifling businesses.
All right.
All right.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Our pleasure.
Mr. Adewale Oyerinde is the Director of Membership Services, NECA.
Thank
So
you.
great to have you.
Thank you.
All right. So commodities market update is next. Do stay with us.